Welcome to the Adaptation Station, a segment on my channel where I, the Emperor, will talk about a particular adaptation, be it a movie, TV show, etc. Today I will be talking about Invincible on Amazon Prime, an adaptation of the Invincible comics, a series written by Robert Kirkman, which ran from 2003 to 2018. Fair warning before I get started, there will be spoilers for the first season of the Invincible show. So if you haven't seen Invincible yet and you don't want to be spoiled on anything, I would strongly suggest that you click off this video, go watch all 8 episodes of Invincible, and then come back. But with that being said, let's dive headfirst into it. Really? So for those of you who haven't picked up on this by now, Invincible is a show that centers around superheroes, primarily Mark Grayson, the main protagonist of the Invincible series. Now Invincible is a pretty good little story. It definitely keeps you on your toes as to what's going to happen next. Like, this is not your typical Marvel or DC type of superhero story, and every good story has a good cast of characters in it. However, I do feel like the show fumbled the ball when it came to quite a few of these characters in this show. But before I talk about them, let me talk about the ones that I feel like they did a pretty good job on. For starters, Mark Grayson, the series protagonist, Invincible himself, was pretty damn good. The way he tries to balance out his school life with his work life, with his superhero life, with his love life, is pretty accurate to how things are in the comic for him. Hell, even the amount of times he gets his ass beat is accurate. The few changes that they added to this character are also pretty welcomed as well. Like in the comics, Mark just kinda gets his powers and is just instantly good with them. But in the show, they actually show him struggling a little bit, and showing that he'll have to train to get a grasp of his new abilities. So I don't have any complaints about Mark in the show whatsoever. Another character that they got pretty spot on was Cecil Stedman, the government official in charge of overseeing superhero activity as well as protecting the planet. He's pretty accurate for the most part, with him being a very morally gray character that will do whatever it takes to save the world, even if that means working with villains. All the members of the teen team, with the exception of Rexplode and Monster Girl, are pretty accurate to how they were portrayed in the Invincible comics. And don't worry, I'll talk about these two later on. Now, much like in the show, the Guardians of the Globe get taken out pretty quickly in the comics, so I can't speak too much about them, with the exception of maybe the Immortal, who it seems they're trying to make less standoffish in the show as opposed to how he was in the book. In my opinion, the character that got the most justice via the show was Titan, the Luke Cage looking guy that's able to create a cement-like coating around his body. Unlike in the comics where he's just kind of a small-time thug, in the show they actually give him legitimate motivations as to why he is a criminal. Because in the show he actually has a family, whereas in the comic book, like I said, he was just a crook. Alan the alien, the guy working with the Coalition of Planets, is again a one-for-one recreation from how he was in the comics. The only problem that I have is that I'm not sure Seth Rogen was the right guy to get for him, but hey, that's just me. Mark's mother Debbie is made to be a bit more headstrong in the show than how she was in the comics. For example, like when she's investigating her husband for the murders of the Guardians of the Globe, which I don't blame her because Nolan makes it super obvious that he's a villain. In fact, let me just put bad guy on his forehead because I don't feel like he's made it obvious enough. Sorry, this isn't about Nolan, this is about Debbie, but aside from that, he plays more or less the same role as he does in the comic book. And the last character that I can say I have no complaints about is Principal Winslow. And while he doesn't have a ton of scenes in the show, it was nice that they got the guy from Family Matters to come by and voice him, considering that that's who the character is basically based off of. So now that we got them out of the way, let's talk about some characters that I felt like could have used a little more TLC. For starters, some characters in the show do feel a bit Flanderized to me. I'm primarily talking about Nolan, William, and Rexplode. So let's start with Nolan. Now we all know that Nolan is a bad guy, pretending to be a good guy, but in the show they go out their way to make him so unreasonably dickish. Like, the dude doesn't even try to hide the fact that he's a villain. Like, to put it to you in certain terms, it feels like Nolan wants to twirl his own mustache so bad, but he can't do it because it's a toothbrush mustache and not a curly mustache. But damn it if he won't try. I'm just saying, even if he hadn't killed the Guardians, I still would suspect him. Like, outside of that one clip where he's helping the Guardians of the Globe at the White House, there is nothing that this guy does that would have you believe he's a superhero. Just like, why is he such a dick? I mean, I know why, but why? I have similar frustrations with Rexplode as well. Now, Rexplode is a douchebag in the comics as well, but the show just amps it up to 11. Seriously, they go above and beyond to let you know that this is the asshole character. Like, can we dial it down just a notch? Other than that, there's not a whole lot I can say about him. He's just super incredibly douchey in the show. Now, let's talk about William, Mark's best friend. Now, William is also gay in the comics, but in the comic books, he didn't come out out until halfway through the run. Also, him being gay wasn't his whole personality like it is in the show. He was a dude that just so happened to be gay. So now instead of just having a sexual preference, he is the token gay character. I guess the showrunners thought that the LGBT community wouldn't notice that a gay character was in there unless he was super gay. Now granted, William never actually becomes anything important or anything like that outside of being Mark's best friend, but still it just bugs me that they can't do better by gay people. But hey, that's just me. Not trying to champion for anybody, not trying to speak for anybody. Just my own personal thoughts. Now Monster Girl is not a flanderized character, however her character seems rather bland compared to how she was in the comics. What I mean is, like on the show, she is actually a woman in her 20s as opposed to a little girl. She just looks like a little girl because of the curse she has on her from whenever she turns into that monster. However, the comic book went out of its way to show you that this is actually a mature woman in the body of a teenager. Like, she'd constantly be doing juvenile things like asking for cigarettes and checking guys out that are supposedly too old for her to be dating, but in the show, they tone her down severely. Like, nothing would make you believe that this is actually a grown-ass woman in the body of a little girl had she not told Robot that that was the case. I mean, yeah, she did drink the beer milk, but teenagers try to drink alcohol all the time, so I don't really count that. Just saying, she's a very boring character now. And lastly, we've got Amber. I pretty much said my piece on this character in my last video, but I will be adding on to it later on in this video. So now that we got the characters on the board, let's talk about how well the story is adapted from comic to screen. This way you guys will get a better understanding of some of my criticisms for the show, be they good or bad. So without further ado, here we go. The Mauler twins reoccurring from time to time and wreaking havoc in suit of their own agenda, with the running gag that neither one knows who is the clone and who is the original. They seem like a couple of brutes at first, but they're actually pretty intelligent blokes. Go figure. Mark developing his powers at work and wanting to follow in his father's supposed footsteps as a superhero. Nolan, aka Omni-Man, taking Mark to get his first costume by his good friend and tailor Art Rosenbaum, who is voiced by the legendary Mark Hamill. The bombshell that Nolan is not the Superman character that we once thought he was, as he brutally murders the Guardians of the Globe one by one. Cecil Stedman, the head of the GDA or Global Defense Agency, wondering just what the hell happened to the Guardians of the Globe, and Damian Darkblood heading an investigation for their murderer. Mark developing a relationship with Amber that starts off good but kinda gets a little rocky due to his double life as Invincible. Cecil recruiting Mark to do hero work in his father's absence. Mark occasionally teaming up with the Teen Team, a group of Teen Titan ripoffs, to help with the Flaxons, a group of interdimensional aliens who age up and die pretty quickly due to the time variant between dimensions. Mark discovering that Eve is Adam Eve and quickly becoming good friends with her. Nolan getting sucked into a Flaxon portal and not coming back until a while later. Alan the alien, a member of the Coalition of Planets, coming to Earth to test its might, and Invincible sent to confront him and letting him know that he should have been at Urath, not Earth, leading to Alan the alien leaving in peace. Rexplode cheating on Eve with Duplicate. Cecil having Robot form a new Guardians of the Globe, which comprises of Robot himself, Shrinking Ray, Monster Girl, Black Samson, Duplicate, and Rexplode. Eve is also given a spot on the team, but refuses to work with Rex after he cheated on her, so she quits. Doc Seismic, the SJW supervillain, causing trouble at Mount Rushmore, and Invincible showing up to save the day, resulting in Doc Seismic falling into a pool of lava, but Invincible being praised as a hero. Eve seemingly trying to make some sort of relationship happen between her and Mark, only to find out that Mark already has somebody.
That's rough, buddy.
Mark going to Mars to protect the 4 astronauts on their journey there, only for things to go haywire when they get kidnapped by the Martian Emperor and fleeing for their lives, resulting in one of the astronauts getting switched out for a Martian, and dooming Mars and possibly the rest of the universe to a sea squid takeover. Robot enlisting the help of the Mauler twins to make him a new clone body off of the DNA of Rexplode, due to the fact that his original body is deformed and can't survive out of what seems to be a bapta tank. Also, he has a crush on Monster Girl, so there's that. Robot turning on the Mauler twins after he gets what he wants from them. Titan, a low-level criminal, getting the help of Invincible to take down Machine Head, resulting in Invincible as well as the new Guardians of the Globe getting their absolute shit kicked in primarily by Battle Beast. Battle Beast leaving the fight because he doesn't believe that these guys are worthy enough opponents for him, as well as Titan taking over as the new Kingpin. Mark, William, Amber, and Rick on the college campus with the very stuck-up D.A. Sinclair, the creator of the Reaniman. He'd basically take unexpected people from the campus and turn them into cyborgs, claiming he's making them them better, quote unquote. Now I don't know about you, but this one guy right here doesn't look too happy, I'm just saying. A reanimator striking the campus and Mark running off to be invincible, leading to the breakup between Mark and Amber because he supposedly doesn't know what's up. William, trying to figure out what happened to Rick, locates the lair of D.A. Sinclair down the sewers, along with Invincible, resulting in Rick being permanently part robot, and Mark losing his ever-loving shit, and bitch-slapping the hell out of Sinclair. Eve going off to do her own superhero thing, and her soft-spoken mother and very overbearing father disapproving. The Mauler twins trying to resurrect the Immortal for their own sinister purposes, only for the plan to backfire, and the Immortal immediately heading out to confront Omni-Man. Omni-Man brutally killing the Immortal on live TV, resulting in everyone discovering his true nature, including Mark. Nolan explained to Mark that the Viltrumites are actually a planet-conquering race that are not there to help save planets but rather enslave them, to expand their empire. Mark not having none of this, resulting in the very one-sided showdown between him and his father. The pet comment. Nolan, after beating the hell out of his son, tries to talk some sense into him and telling him how pointless it is to care for the people of Earth due to their massively long lifespans, and asking him what he'll have in 500 years. To which Mark replies, despite it all, he would still have his father. This touches Nolan so much that he can't bring himself to kill his own son and flees the planet. Robot showing up to the Guardians HQ in his new body and explaining his new look to the others. Cecil doing the best he can to try to help Mark's family in these trying times. Alan the alien showing back up to inform Invincible that Earth has been marked for a Viltrumite takeover, only for Mark to tell him that he already knows, explain the situation to him, and the two promising to help each other when it comes to the Viltrumites. A quick glimpse of future events we may or may not see in Season 2, such as Doc Seismic actually being alive and in control of a molten army, Cecil working with D.A. Sinclair on more Reaniman, and an incoming Sea Squid invasion. And that's pretty much all the important stuff that the show recreates from the comic book, and it does a pretty good job of recreating most of these iconic scenes. However, it is time to get into the criticism portion of this video. Now, not all criticisms are bad, I actually have a few good ones that I'd like to point out. That being said though, do not expect me to suck the show off. I will be fair, but firm. So first up, I don't really get what they were doing at the beginning with the stepdad and the other cop. Like, I get that you guys need an opener for the show, but this exchange goes on for like 2 minutes. I guess I just don't feel like it needs to go on for that long. Now, it's only slightly dragging things out, and this isn't the only scene in the show that does this, where they kind of carefully pad out the show for the sake of getting it to the appropriate runtime. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but it is a minor gripe that I had, because I don't really feel like the episodes need to be as long as they are. But hey, that's just me. One of the things I did like was seeing the Guardians of the Globe kick a little bit of ass before their subsequent massacre by Omni-Man. I thought this was a really cool way to subvert people's expectations, because non-comic book readers are going to go into this with a false sense of security that this is just going to be your standard superhero show. Like, I was watching this show with my girlfriend, and she hadn't read the comics, so she didn't know, but she was thinking it was just a rip-off Justice League show. And oh boy, could nothing be further from the truth. I see what you guys did there, you sneaky bastards. Well played. Well played. I just want to take a moment to talk about the musical score in the show. It is phenomenal. Just saying, whoever was responsible for the music in this show, they need a pay raise. The animation and the action is also pretty top notch. The only thing that I would complain about animation wise is the very ugly CGI models used whenever they have to show a multitude of people on screen at once. Granted, most people probably won't notice it, but still, I did, and I'm just like, oh, it's so ugly. But moving on, most things in episode 1 were really changed for the better for the show, with the exception of tokenizing certain characters under the guise of, well, we just wanted to represent the actors. Now guys, I'm gonna tell you something. If you want to believe bullshit, that's fine. Just don't ask me to believe bullshit. Like, did anybody else realize that the only races that got changed were the ones that were originally white?
Coincidence? I think not!
Like, it's very clear that they wanted a very diverse show, and while Invincible isn't nearly as woke as something you would see on the CW, for example, it's definitely dipping its toe into the pool. I can only pray that it doesn't jump in. Anyway, I do notice that some things they do try to make more action-packed. For example, the deaths of the Guardians of the Globe. In the comic book, there was no fight. It was just boom 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 dead. But in the show, it definitely feels more like a beatdown than easy pickings. Now, I'm kind of okay with this, but at the same time, I'm kind of not. On the one hand, it was a really cool fight to see, but on the other hand, Nolan goes down as well, after having quite a time trying to kill them all. And because of that, this kind of leaves Nolan as a prime suspect for the murders of the Guardians of the Globe. Like, in the comics, Nolan just dipped after he took care of business, so there was no need to suspect him. But in the show, because he is the sole survivor of this beatdown, combined with his new cocky and arrogant attitude that the show gives him, you could probably crack this case in one day, which Debbie even fucking does. You can still have your cake and eat it too, just have Nolan fly away after he kills him. I mean, the whole investigation was probably one of the weaker aspects of the show anyway. Not only for the stuff I just named off, but also because there are very few consequences for Nolan should he get caught. Like, to give you some perspective here, I don't know how many of you guys have seen Breaking Bad, but in that show, when Walter was doing all this shady shit on the side, you always felt like at any moment this dude's whole world could crumble. Like, the DEA constantly came close to catching him, and he would always just kind of narrowly escape. But you were always kind of on the edge of your seat because you would think to yourself, oh boy, how is Walter gonna get out of this one? Here in Invincible with Nolan, you don't have that same feel of tension that you would with Walter White. The main difference being is that you can't really police Nolan in any capacity, and there are very few consequences for him should he get caught. Sure, his personal relationships with his family and friends will be destroyed, but in the long run, he really doesn't have nothing to lose. Now, I understand Nolan is not the main character, but you can still have an investigation centered around someone who is not the main character and make it interesting. I'm just saying that for this particular story, it doesn't work that well. Like I said before, it just seems like they're lightly padding out the episodes a bit here. Also in the comic book, the investigation is treated as a joke. Like, yeah, there is a mention of an investigation at the beginning, but by the time Nolan is revealed to be a bad guy, Damien Darkblood comes back and he's like, hey, I know who killed the Guardians, and everybody's like, yeah, we already know. So I didn't mean to go on that little tirade, that just really bugged me. So let's get back to talking about the things I liked about the show. I do like that Mark kind of had to get trained on how to use his powers properly as opposed to just being instantly good with them, like he was in the comics. I also love the father-son dynamic between him and Nolan. In fact, I'd have to say they probably had the best relationship on the show, even if I do find some of Nolan's parenting choices a bit questionable. Like how Nolan will watch his son get folded by battle bees, but you know, that's none of my business. I'm not here to tell anybody how to parent. Another great change from the comic book to the show is that we actually get to see the collateral damage done by these superheroes when they're engaged in combat. Don't get me wrong, there was collateral damage in the comic book, but you never actually saw somebody die, unless they were somebody of importance somehow, some way. Here on the show though, you see people die on the regular, like holy shit, so much carnage. Now while I did mention a couple of things during the adaptation accuracy portion of this video, some of these storylines were combined with other storylines that weren't supposed to take place until after Nolan had left the planet, such as Mark going to Mars, the whole machine gun incident, and him being on that college campus was actually supposed to be his time in college. What worries me about this is that while it is understandable why they would combine certain storylines together because not a whole lot happens from issue 1 to issue 12 of Invincible, I could see them not having enough source material to adapt, and the show suffers for it as a result. Case in point, Game of Thrones. I'm choosing to be cautiously optimistic on this one, keyword being cautiously. One of the things I noticed about the show is that it seems to have made some of its female characters smarter than what they were in their comic book counterpart. For example, with a character like Amber, she figured out that Mark was a superhero off screen. Now aside from the whole reanimate attack, there is nothing that Mark has done with her that would suggest that he is a superhero. And she doesn't bring any facts to the table as to how she figured that information out. She's just smart because the plot calls her to be smart. Don't believe me? Okay, answer me this then. How can she figure out who the hell Mark is, but she has no idea that Eve and Adam Eve are one and the same? Girl doesn't even wear a mask. Oh right, they're not dating, so there's no drama to be had from that. My bad. Also somebody like Monster Girl who was just automatically able to figure out that Robot got himself a new clone body for her sake. Again, right answer. Now show me the receipts. Like, what would make her think that Robot went through all that trouble for her? Granted, he did go out to the Arctic to get her that flower so that she would live, but that isn't enough to say that I got an entirely new body just for you. Especially since they didn't even know he was a person, they thought he was just a robot. Like, look, if you want to make the women of the show a little smarter than what they were in the comic book, that's fine, but can you at least give an ounce of proof? Also, some of the character interactions in the show don't make a whole lot of sense. Now, I've already talked about Amber and Liv, so if you want to check out that video, here it is right here. But I am going to expand upon it a little bit in talking about how both William and Adam Eve took Amber's side, no questions asked. Let me start by talking about Eve. So he goes to Eve, tells her what happened between him and Amber. Eve's being kind of a ball buster, and Mark is like, but you're the one who told me not to tell her that I'm invincible. And she replies, yeah, but you shouldn't have strung her around for months while being an asshole. And I'm just like, what? So what's the takeaway here? Don't tell Amber that you are a superhero, but at the same time, don't date Amber? Like, if your advice to him was, hey, you shouldn't date this chick because you're a superhero, why not just say that? The only reason I can think of is that maybe she was trying to sabotage these two so she could have Mark all to herself. That might make a bit of sense right there, but don't give a dude conflicting advice like that and expect him to pick up on what you're saying. Now let's talk about William, Mark's BFF. Like, as far as William goes, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that William should have told Mark every single thing he wanted to hear, but at the same time, he's not even remotely understanding of Mark and the responsibility responsibility that he has and why things ended between him and Amber the way they did. And it seemed like he only acted that way because he was kind of pissy that his kind of boyfriend got turned into a cyborg. And again, he's not seeing Mark's point of view at all. Like, even if they said something along the lines of, okay, I see your side, but here's her side, that would be fine. But my problem is they're making it sound like Mark has no side, that he's just this asshole who got what he deserved. That just doesn't seem fair to me, considering the fact that these two are Mark's closest friends. And again, I'm not saying tell Mark everything that he wants to hear, but don't be so quick to take Amber's side on this because she is not that innocent. Also, another character interaction that I didn't quite get behind was Black Samson's kind of turnaround on the team. Like, one of his biggest concerns with them at the beginning was the fact that they were more concerned with kicking ass than saving lives. And then towards the end, when they do save everybody in the aftermath of Omni-Man's onslaught, he goes to beat up Rex because he was going to clean up the blood stain on the wall. And then when everybody stands up to him, he's just kind of like, well, now we look like a team. And I guess this is where I get confused because I thought that his problem with them was that while they were working as a team, they were not doing a good job of paying attention to civilians and their surroundings. So they do have good teamwork that could be much better. And then when Rex is cleaning up the wall in episode 8, they kind of make it seem like they finally learned the lesson that needed to be taught here. Like, I guess I just don't get what they were going for here, and it could just be another case of light padding for the sake of the runtime. The way Nolan gets caught, quote unquote, is similar to how he gets caught in the comic book, though the show makes things a little more action-packed, for the sake of entertaining the audience, and you know, I get it. Anime does this all the time. Though I feel like they should have done things a little bit differently in the show considering how things happen in the comic. In the comic book, Nolan's just going around doing his regular Nolan thing, when out of nowhere the Immortal just smacks into him, and things from there happen pretty similarly to how they happen in the show. Now in the show's version of events, Cecil throws everything but the kitchen sink at Nolan, then the Immortal shows up and things play out from there. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because due to the nature of how things play out in the book, where everybody was just kind of blindsided by the return of the Immortal and attacking Omni-Man, there really wasn't enough time to properly assess the situation from the time the Immortal showed up to the time Omni-Man left the planet. In the show, they were more on guard to the fact that Nolan was a villain. So I guess what I'm wondering here is, how come Cecil didn't organize superheroes that could help him possibly take this guy down? Like in the comics, and I know it gets a little annoying with me saying in the comics over and over again, I'm sorry guys, but I'm trying to get y'all to see where I'm coming from here. So, in the comics, no spoilers, but there is a situation that happens later on, and Cecil is like, call out the superheroes. And Donald's like, which one, sir? And he's like, all of them, goddammit, this is important. Now, I'm not saying throw out somebody like Rexplode or Duplicate, somebody that would just be absolutely useless in this situation, but there are a lot more superheroes than the ones we saw in this season. And considering the fact that they've all teamed up before in the comics and have fought stronger opponents and won, then I guess I just don't see no reason as to why Cecil wouldn't have a couple of extra superheroes on standby. I'm just saying, you're lucky this dude decided to leave because the way you're running things, y'all would have been fucked. And those are pretty much my criticisms on the show, so here are my final thoughts. All in all, Invincible is a pretty good show so far. There are some things that I do feel like they need to work on story-wise, but for the most part it's a pretty good show, and I definitely recommend it to people who are looking for something different. And if you are liking the show, then you should definitely check out the comics, because shit is going to get real in the next couple of seasons. I give Invincible Season 1 a 7.5 out of 10. Again, it's not the best thing since Sliced Wonder Bread, but it is enjoyable. If anything, I'm enjoying it more than I am The Boys. And trust me, that show will have its time. But for now, let me know what you guys think of Invincible Season 1. And if you have read the comics, I do respectfully ask you to not spoil anything for anybody. I know a lot of people want to go into this blind and not knowing anything, and I don't want to ruin their experience with the show for them. Don't forget to support your Emperor by hitting the like and clicking subscribe, and help me expand my empire by following me on these social media platforms. You wouldn't want to commit treason now, would you?